Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrue2 here. Just wanted to bring you a video about actually what's going to be happening in the new patch 1.1 cycle. Cycle 2 for Last Epoch. It's called Harbingers of Ruin. And we're just going to jump in a little bit to what's going to be happening, what the devs are going to be having, different things like that. So, yeah, without further ado, let's check out the official trailer for the game. Let me just go back and make it full screen here for everybody. A lot of really cool things that happened in that first, like, four or 5 seconds.
You remind me of him, Traveler. It's that same unwavering hope that
Wow.
led us straight into oblivion. And now, you're part of a war that you don't fully understand.
New evade ability, Nemesis System, Forgotten Knights faction, hundreds of balance changes. Pinnacle Boss.
To warn you, to spare you, but his eyes are upon you now. There is no time left, no refuge, no hope. His harbingers are coming.
Wow. So let's take a look really quick. I want to jump through this video for just a quick moment here. We'll just dissect this a little bit, and then we'll get into the notes that they have, if this will play. Okay. So, looks like Acolyte with kind of a bone ring, maybe. We got the Rune Master. I like this with the shields, too. This is a Sentinel with shields and stuff like that. And then what was that one? Hydra? Oh. Alright, so let's take a peek at this really quick.
You remind me of him,
So this is the boss. This is sick.
Traveler. It's that same unwavering hope.
Wow. That looks badass. Right? Got the arms there, got the flail.
That led us straight into oblivion.
This is the new area, I'm assuming, that it's gonna have, gonna be like the Pinnacle Boss area, where you can get your stash, waypoint there, maybe empowered monoliths, maybe it's the end of the monolith system. So there's gonna be 4 Harbinger bosses. That was 1, I think.
Straight into oblivion.
Take a look at this really quick.
And now, you're part of a war that
So this is 1. Looks like it's in the Raya. So I think it's the Ruin, something Ruin.
you don't fully understand.
That's another one. It's the Heorot's Sanctum. It's a 3rd one. Like mini bosses, and then that's the 4th one. Oh, this is gonna be sweet. 5th one, 6th one. So evade ability, so you'd be able to like dash, evade left and right. This is gonna be the Nemesis system. You apparently like items of those slain by harbingers animated and bent on vengeance against all travelers. So apparently you like infuse 2 items and you use this as a trinket to like empower another piece. And you have an option of leaving, new evade ability, Nemesis System, you can banish, which means you remove him so you don't interact with it. You can challenge him, which drops, I think, these things. That's probably what it is. And then you empower him, and he becomes even more powerful than before. Alright. Glyph of Envy is going to be the new glyph that's coming out. The tiers of sealed affixes added by empowering a nemesis are 15% higher on average. Gaze of Orbis grants +1 additional corruption. Blessings roll their value twice and pick the highest value. That is really cool. Timeline Harbingers are twice as likely to drop their specific uniques. Wow. Balance changes, great. And then Pinnacle Boss here is the final one. So it looks like there's going to be other enemies as well as just the fight. That looks sweet.
There is no time left. No refuge. No hope. His harbingers are coming.
Wow. That looks pretty sweet, man. Really excited for this. All right, July 9th is the date, everybody. July 9th is the date. That's when Last Epoch servers are going to be overloaded. And then I'll just read this for people that don't want to read it themselves. So it's going to start off talking about the evade mechanic, nemesis mechanic after that, then Harbingers and Forgotten Night, Pinnacle Bosses, Boss Defenses, Glyph of Envy, Harbinger's Needle, new uniques, and then the very final one. So let's jump into this really quick. So it says, hello, travelers. Last Epoch's first post-launch cycle arrives in just a couple of weeks on July 9th, and we can't wait to talk about it any longer. Today, we're going to be covering the big features you can expect with Harbingers of Ruin on July 9th. For those that were with us in beta, we had previously done a hype week with similar blog posts leading up to the patch. This time, we're going to be combining everything into two big posts. Today's What's New, and a second post that will come soon covering quality of life and other changes. Then as we close in on patch day, we'll be releasing the full patch notes for everyone to have a look through and get ready for the Harbingers. Today, let's start by jumping into the new features with Harbingers of Ruin, starting with the new evade mechanic. So this is what it's going to be. Evade mechanic for every single class, and it actually looks pretty cool. It doesn't give you any, there's no iframes. It talks about that a little bit in here, but iframes are basically like immunity frames, so you can't use this to become immune when you're dodging like boss mechanics or other mechanics or things like that. So an evade or dodge roll mechanic has been a highly requested feature with patch 1.1. It will become available for all classes and transformations. So even like being in a bear druid or like a spriggan or swarmblade or a lich or anything like that, you'll be able to evade even with those, which is really nice. Evade provides a fast, short distance movement, allowing players to quickly avoid many powerful attacks. We specifically call it an evade rather than a dodge roll for several reasons. The first is that dodge is already a mechanic in Last Epoch, which can lead to some confusion. The second is that evade is not always a rolling move for all characters. Okay, that makes sense. First, let's talk about how evade works. All characters will have the evade available from level 1 with a default of 2 charges available and a 4-second cooldown. As your character level increases, so will evade's cooldown recovery speed. So as your character grows more powerful, you can also evade more often. That's actually very, very nice. Look at this. Rapidly move a short distance forwards. Evading does not grant damage immunity or prevent abilities from hitting you, and evade gains a 0.5% increased cooldown recovery speed per character level. So level 100, you gain a 50% increased cooldown recovery speed per level, so, or total rather. It is important to note that evade does not grant any immunity frames. It lets you move easily to avoid attacks, but you're still vulnerable to damage. If you evade but are inside of an attack area, you will still take the damage. This is why we wanted to avoid confusion with the existing dodge mechanic, as evade does not provide damage mitigation. This also helps keep some of the power and identity to movement skills as more specialized and often safer movement options. Well, that's pretty nice, and it scales with movement, so anything that like increases movement speed will probably make this go faster, like evade faster. The most important thing with introducing evade mechanic is that it now allows us to assume a baseline of mobility for all characters. This doesn't mean utilizing evade will be essential for all builds, as many players will prefer traversal abilities. Having evade simply means we have a lowest level of possible mobility every player can be expected to have. This allows us to increase the base difficulty in some fights, regardless if players use evade or another movement ability. So basically what they're saying here is that, like, now that every single class has this evade mechanic with them, that they can increase the difficulty on fights, which end up resulting in fights being harder, them knowing that every class has the evade to evade out of the ability or something like that. So this is going to be actually pretty cool. By introducing an evade mechanic, we also open up some build opportunities within Last Epoch. Most builds currently feel forced to have to include a traversal skill. Yes, I do agree with that. Purely for evading incoming attacks, which has a limiting impact on potential build diversity. So it's nice that they're kind of taking a look at that. By providing all characters a default method to quickly avoid enemy abilities, there's not as much pressure to include a traversal skill in every build. Of course, many will still prefer one for overall speed, but it will no longer be as mandatory for survival, which makes a whole lot of sense, honestly, to me. We also wanted to make sure that evade wouldn't simply be replacing traversal abilities in general. As such, evade will not have a skill tree or be assigned to a slot within the skill bar. You can still change the keybind, obviously. In addition, there will be powerful options to modify evade, including a number of uniques which can drastically change it. Some of these options will even replace evade completely with a different mechanic, such as double checking team, summoning a crab. So we'll be able to summon crabs, which is pretty sweet, considering that it replaces the entire design of it and allows players to sort of figure something out. So here is what they have for the evade mechanic. Like Shrine Boots, for example, will have 21% increased cooldown recovery speed for evade. This is a new unique item that gives you one evade charge, increased cooldown recovery speed for evade, increased cooldown recovery speed for Fury Leap. So it looks like this is going to be for Primalist. 1.8 seconds of haste after you use evade, and 1.5 seconds of haste after you use a traversal skill, and then 16% increased haste effect, which actually sounds pretty sweet. Lots of movement speed and lots of haste and things like that. And then this ring is the ring that they were talking about. I can't even say that. Carcinization of momentum. It will evade is replaced by summon crab. You have swiftness, 21% increased armor, 29% increased minion armor, and 6 to all stats. Level 23, which actually sounds pretty sweet, getting it that early. All right, so that is the evade mechanic. The next thing we're going to be talking about is the Nemesis System. So, as you can see here, you interact with them, you replace an item, an LP'd item, and then it combines them. So Nemesis is a new random encounter system you will encounter during Harbingers of Ruin. While 1.1's primary focus was around the Pinnacle Boss system, many players may take some time to react to reach that point in the game. We wanted to make sure that these players didn't feel left out of 1.1, as well as introducing more systems for everyone to engage with. While traveling through Terra, during both the campaign and the Monolith of Fate, you may randomly come across this new encounter type, the Nemesis. Upon spotting one of these powerful warriors slain by a Harbinger, With its armor circling around its body, you will be provided with an opportunity to add more loot to your horde. Interacting with the remains will present you with a window showing several items available from the Nemesis, as well as 3 options on what you would like to do in regards to the items. So apparently when you start to face it, you get those options, right? You get a choice of 4 different options if you want to challenge said Harbinger, or said Nemesis, rather. So banishing the Nemesis will cause the encounter to be put to rest, banishing both the current Nemesis and the items it offers. This will provide you with the opportunity for a completely new selection of items with the next Nemesis you find without fighting the current Nemesis. So this is something like, if you don't like what they have, or you don't want to risk what they have, you just banish them, and the next time you come in contact with this fight, it will have completely new items, so that way you don't have to worry about like getting the same ones, like having to defeat the same thing over and over and over again. The second option you will be given is to challenge the Nemesis. By selecting to challenge, the Nemesis will rise from his grave and return to the fight. Should you succeed in putting the Nemesis to rest, you will receive all items which were displayed in the earlier UI. If you defeat the Nemesis, the next one you encounter will also have a new set of items. Okay, so you can either banish him to get new items, or you can challenge him to get new items, which sounds pretty fair. The final option you will be provided with is the ability to empower the Nemesis. By selecting Empower, the Nemesis will awaken and attack you in its rage. Then upon defeat, it will flee instead of dropping its items. You will encounter this same Nemesis again next time, which will have the same which will have the same items available, but giving them potentially increased affix tiers, forging potential, or legendary potential. Empowering a Nemesis can also add new affixes to items, including non-experimental sealed affixes. Wow. Empowering is able to upgrade sealed, non-experimental affixes all the way up to 6 or 7, which hasn't been possible before. Wow, so that means like items that you get, that, you know, if you're interested in getting an item that he has on screen, you can empower him. He'll take those items. Upon defeat, he will flee instead of dropping its items. And because of that, it makes it so that the next time you encounter him, they could potentially have increased affix tiers, forging potential, or legendary potential. So I'm assuming this works with like exalted items, with rare items, basically all the items that they have right now. But mostly you're going to be looking forward to like upgrading the tier fixes, getting higher ranges on them possibly, and even like giving you more forging potential, which is great, which will allow you to sort of do it yourself, right? And then legendary potential for all the uniques that they have that are available, to get a higher level of legendary potential. You can empower a Nemesis twice, increasing the quality of rewards as well as the power of the Nemesis holding them. Once an empowered Nemesis has been banished or defeated after challenging it, the next Nemesis encounter will start over as unempowered with new items. Wow. So that sounds pretty sweet, actually. Gives a lot of like selection and choice when it comes to the Nemesis system and stuff like that. Like, basically, it gives you an option to sort of like figure out like what you want to do with those items. If you want to empower them so that the next time you face the Nemesis, you can actually get better rewards, like better affixed tiers and stuff like that. Okay, next one is going to be Eggs of the Forgotten. So this can be replaced with a unique item that lacks both legendary potential and Weaver's Will, and it changes into a random unique item if dropped or empowered. So it looks like this item here, this egg here, he replaces it with another item that doesn't have legendary potential or doesn't have Weaver's Will. So that's actually pretty cool. Nemesis can also be found with a special reward type, an Egg of the Forgotten. If you immediately challenge the Nemesis, the egg will reward a random unique. However, you can instead replace it with your own unique item that has no legendary potential. This item is then empowered through the Nemesis system and can become a legendary by gaining random affixes or instead even gain legendary potential. Wow, that is really cool. Basically just more ways to build your character to get more LP and to also even convert an item that doesn't have any LP into an item that does have LP. So it's like you get a really good base item and has no LP, you slot that in there, and then once you slot it in there, has the chance of gaining LP based off of that, right? Which is actually really cool. So the next one is going to be Harbinger and the Forgotten Knight. So so we get into the titular system, the heart of the new Pinnacle Boss system coming on July 9th. Learn more about the history of Orienthia, the Forgotten Knight, as her past catches up with her. Align yourself with the Forgotten Knights as a new faction as you progress through the new Harbinger system and eventually challenge the leader of the Harbingers. That's pretty cool image right there. I like that. Nice art. With all the void and stuff like that. The hammer. Yeah, very cool. To gain access to the new Pinnacle Boss, you will first need to challenge and defeat the Harbingers. These are new bosses which can be found deep within the Monolith of Faith. As you progress corruption in different timelines, you will be able to encounter new Harbingers to progress your ranks within the Forgotten Knights faction and to get closer to challenging their leader. Harbingers can be found in two main variants, Agile and Brute. Agile and Brute. Beyond having greatly different combat styles, the Harbingers also gain abilities from the Timeline's boss, bringing unique considerations into each of the 10 timelines. Actually kind of cool. You will need to defeat the Harbingers in each of the 10 timelines before being able to access the portal to the most difficult fight in Last Epoch to date. You will also have a chance to harvest an eye from the Harbinger upon defeating them, which you can then use as a currency to access the Pinnacle Boss fight. The first 10 unique Harbingers you defeat are guaranteed to provide an eye with a chance afterwards. This will provide you with 10 attempts at the Pinnacle fight when you first unlock it. Once you have defeated 10 Harbingers, you can continue to challenge the Harbingers to gather additional eyes for further attempts. So this is their way of like putting a sort of meter on the Pinnacle Boss fight. That way you can't just keep going and keep fighting and keep fighting. It's like you have these opportunities. You have 10 chances to do it, kind of like Last Epoch with the portals. You have a little bit more than Path of Exile, but you know it ends up. I feel like that's a really good choice, considering that they have 10 timelines. Okay, so Forgotten Knight. After defeating the first Harbinger, you will begin your journey with the Forgotten Knights faction. You will find the Forgotten Knight herself in her camp upon the Shattered Road. Here you will learn about the Harbingers and Orientha's history with the advice from Orienthia. You will set out on your quest to track down an end which has caused her all but to lose hope completely. So I don't know if anybody knows, but the Forgotten Knight was actually the character model for the Sentinel before it became a male. And the reason why it got changed was because a lot of people that were posting on the forums mentioned stuff like, if this person was very militaristic, which is what the Sentinel is, the backstory is kind of going on, it wouldn't be a woman. It would be something other than that. And so they made the Forgotten Knight a sort of interactable NPC in the End of Time. When you're there, you speak to her before going into the monoliths. But they've actually made her a part of a new faction, which is pretty cool. So the Forgotten Knights faction. As you make your way through the Harbingers, you will progress your rank with the Forgotten Knights faction. Okay, as you make your way through the Harbingers. So apparently the Harbingers are like, you need to defeat Harbingers in order to get different levels of it. As with other factions, increasing your rank with the faction knight will grant unique rank reward benefits. These benefits include increasing Harbinger unique drop chance, lucky blessing rolls, and even an increased chance to drop a new crafting material, the Glyph of Envy. So let's take a look at this down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 10 for sure. So it looks like each one that you defeat is a tier, which makes a whole lot of sense. Okay, so the Pinnacle Boss. With Harbinger eyes in hand and all 10 Harbingers defeated, you can make your way to the portal beyond the Shattered Road. Place an eye upon the altar and you will be pulled into the Harbinger's domain. Within this domain, you will face off against the leader of the Harbingers and a servant of Oribus, Aberoth. Your fight will take you through the 4 eras, each presenting unique arena mechanics and empowering Aberoth with new abilities to further crush your hopes of facing the void. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. With the release of patch 1.1, Harbingers of Ruin, Aberoth will only be available to be challenged in the online cycle. This allows an opportunity for the new Pinnacle fight to be experienced and learned through natural progression rather than instantly solved by characters outfitted in the very best gear. Once this boss has been defeated in the cycle, Aberoth will be made available to both Legacy and all offline modes within the next business day. If Aberoth remains unslain for the first week, we will automatically release the encounter to all environments to prevent too long of a delay for offline and Legacy players. So basically what it says is it's only available for online characters. If you're playing offline, very sorry, but you should be playing online with the rest of us. Other than that, after the first week, if it's not killed, it will be released to everybody. And if it is killed within that first week, what's going to happen is the next business day. So if it's killed on a Friday, Monday will be the next day because that's considered to be a business day. Saturday and Sunday aren't considered to be business days. So at least we'll have a little bit of wiggle room. If we kill it on like Saturday or Sunday, then it'll be available on Monday because it's the next business day. Let's see, if Aberoth... Okay, yeah. Boss defenses. So they actually changed how boss defenses work. Out with the old and in with the new. As some are aware, bosses in Last Epoch up until 1.1 had dynamic damage reduction. So one of the biggest issues with the system was the little awareness about it. It wasn't a very clear system as it didn't have any sort of visual representation. It was also easy to misunderstand due to its dynamic nature and generally resulted in a feels bad of seeing yourself doing less damage to bosses after a few hits without anything actively telling you why. While more damage per second was always still more damage per second against the boss, sometimes it didn't feel like it because of the scaling damage reduction. Dealing more damage early on could also lull you into a false sense of security with more leech from that damage, leaving you more vulnerable later into the fight. Which makes a lot of sense, honestly. So it looks like Harbinger of Brutality. This is one of the Harbinger bosses. He's got like a ward shield now instead of just having his HP, which is notable by the blue bar in his health as well as the plus 43%. In response to this feedback, we're replacing boss dynamic damage reduction with a boss ward system. With this new system, as a boss reaches predetermined breakpoints, it will gain a burst of ward that then decays over time. The longer the ward is present, the faster it will decay. The goals of this are the same as the dynamic damage reduction system, that bosses are given a better opportunity to exist and fight back without punishing lower DPS builds that already get this experience, which will be very helpful for the builds that I have. because I make a lot of off-meta builds, and they don't do too well. As the ward decays at an accelerating rate, lower DPS builds will have less total damage necessary to cut through, while higher DPS builds will continue cutting through the ward while it decays. This means higher DPS builds will still kill bosses much faster than lower DPS builds, but it does so in a way that doesn't suddenly make bosses sponges for higher damage builds, which is actually really nice. This system also provides a much clearer visual representation of how you're actually progressing through the boss's health. Previously with DDR, because the resistance could stack up, some parts of the health bar could take longer to get through than others. This created false expectations of how long the boss was going to take to kill based on early damage. So if you did a whole bunch, like right now, you did a whole bunch of damage at the start, he would gain this damage reduction towards the end of the fight because you did so much damage at the start. So this is really gonna show us really what the damage reduction is, right? And having that ward bar is gonna make things a little bit easier to understand. Alongside the change from boss dynamic damage reduction to boss ward, we've also made a couple of other defensive changes to bosses, because boss health no longer has such a high damage reduction for high DPS builds. It would inherently be easier to randomly stun. As such, we're giving bosses 50% more resistance to stun, and freeze, which is effectively adding 50% more to their more life to their calculations for stun and freeze. We've also reduced the effectiveness of slow and chill against bosses to 50%, matching the effectiveness of these alignments on players. Lastly, we're adding a maximum stun and freeze duration to powerful endgame bosses such as Harbingers to increase the difficulty of CC locking them, which is actually very nice. Alright, so the new glyph. A very common area of feedback we see is that it can be feel very slow to progress through monoliths on subsequent characters. When addressing this feedback, we didn't want players to simply skip monoliths that can lead to a worse experience, especially for newer players. Alongside tweaks to stability rates, we're also introducing the new Glyph of Envy with patch 1.1. This item allows you to greatly accelerate progress through normal timelines you have not yet completed and add a large amount of stability to timelines you have completed. So this is the Glyph of Envy. It destabilizes items, unpredictably changing all properties other than the affix being upgraded. This stability is siphoned to the most recent monolith timeline you entered, greatly increasing its stability. And then it says in the notes here, the forging potential of the item is not changed beyond the normal reduction, and the changes cannot result in affixes above tier 5. Existing sealed affixes cannot be changed. Grants far... Whoops. Oh, geez. What did I do? Oh, I hit a button. Let me go back down there and take a look really quick. Existing grants far more stability if you have never completed the timeline. So basically, this is a way for people to have different characters. This would be very helpful now for me because I have a ton of different characters that I play. But basically what it's going to do is you're going to upgrade your affixes on items to something random, and all of those affixes that would have been upgraded are then siphoned to the timeline, giving you a lot more of your stability, so you can potentially go through different timelines very quickly on newer characters and not have to feel like you're being kind of held back with anything. It does say by upgrading an affix using a Glyph of Envy, it will have two effects. One on the item itself, and a second effect on your most recently accessed timeline. On the item, it will be upgraded. It will upgrade the selected affix as normal. In addition, every other property of the item will be changed other than item type. This means that a ring will remain a ring, but the 3 other affixes as well as the subtype will be randomized to completely new stats. As well as a subtype. Wow. So it can be like, if you get like a silver ring that gives you movement speed, it can be converted to a gold ring that gives you elemental resistance or something like that, which is actually really cool. Having destabilized the item, the glyph siphons that lost stability and grants it to your most recently accessed timeline. The bottom of the foraging window will tell you which timeline will receive the stability. If it's a normal timeline and you have not already completed it, the glyph will grant that timeline full stability. Wow, that's awesome. Right there, that's super cool. This allows you to immediately conquer the timeline quest objectives. If it's empowered timeline or a normal timeline you have already completed, it will instead have a moderate burst of stability added. Wow, that's really sweet. Glyphs of Envy can only be found within level 100 zones, and drop most commonly from rare enemies and harbingers. This helps reduce negative UX, which is user experience, for new players feeling forced to use them and make progression more even. It also prevents interruption for community race events where a sudden Glyph of Envy could completely determine the race, right? Which is very nice, considering that, like, if people are trying to get to the Pinnacle Boss to see who can beat it the fastest, this will sort of prevent that. You have to be an empowered monolith, really, before you can actually start to see these things drop. Harbinger's Needle is a new item coming in Harbingers of Ruin to further assist with pushing corruption. This item is very unique in that it's the first consumable equipped item. I don't know about first consumable equipped item, because there's the cuckoo, which actually is consumed in a way. But, yeah. This item breaks when you kill a timeline boss above 90 corruption, causing that timeline boss to kill to grant 3 additional Gaze of Orbis. And Gaze, if you're curious what Gaze of Orbis is, maybe it's like on the tip of your tongue, you know what it is, but you can't think of it. Basically, Gaze of Orbis gives you more corruption when you kill the Shade of Orbis. So it's basically like another way of getting more corruption faster. If this unique item is equipped in your idle inventory when you kill any timeline boss above 90 corruption, golly, I did it again. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to edit that out or something, man. Upon granting, let's see, you will gain, yes, upon granting the additional Gaze of Orbis, the item is destroyed. This allows you to quickly build large corruption boosts, which is the Gaze of Orbis. For those unfamiliar, Gaze of Orbis is a mechanic found within the empowered timelines. This stackable bonus, acquired from defeating timeline bosses, rewards additional corruption the next time you defeat a Shade of Orbis. We have some other mechanic improvements coming to Gaze of Orbis to make it a smoother mechanic, but we'll dive more into that on the quality of life post, which will be coming soon. Patch 1.1 will be introducing 30 new unique items to be found and built around. Most of these will be able to be found throughout Ateras, though a select few can only be found through the new bosses. Today we're sharing a few examples of the uniques you'll most likely be able to find. So these are 4 uniques that you can get coming out. It looks like they're all, this one is the only one that's 65, everything else is 80, 85, 87, so it looks like it's going to be kind of an empowered monolith. Event Horizon, which is a 2-handed mace. It's a Vault Crusher, which is from the like chest that you find. Let's see, 55 melee penetration against all resistances. That is amazing. When you use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy, you gain a stack of dilation. 15% more melee damage per stack of dilation, 5% less attack speed and cast speed, and 5% less movement speed. All stacks of dilution are lost when you use evade. Wow, that's really cool. 13% more damage to slow to enemies. Wow, that's awesome. Wall of Nothing. 12% chance to gain or to take 0 damage when hit. Wow, that's pretty cool. Bunch of ward, endurance threshold, 17% of endurance threshold added as ward decay threshold. Wow, that's really cool. And then this one, Aberos Command, which is going to be a Void Knight item. Void Cleave is now instant and is no longer a movement skill. Void Cleave no longer has a weapon requirement. Ravaging Auras created by Void Cleave last an additional 8 seconds and have 40% Void Penetration. 268 increased damage over time, 25% increased area for area skills, and 13% Void Penetration. It just sounds like an all-around awesome item, basically to have for like a Void Knight or something like that. 140 dodge rating for the Phase Point Quiver. 9% increased dodge rating, 4% chance to gain Dusk Shroud on dodge, 45% chance to gain Black Arrow on dodge, +1 void damage per Dusk Shroud when using a Black Arrow, +3 to Dark Quiver. Wow, awesome. Everything here is super cool. I'm really loving this Aberos Command where Void Cleave no longer has a weapon requirement. That's going to be really, really cool. And that's basically what they've put out. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join us for today's blog post covering new features coming with Harbingers of Ruin. Make sure to keep your eyes out for the upcoming post on some of the quality of life and other changes coming in just a couple weeks' time, followed by the patch notes prior to the release of 1.1 Harbingers of Ruin on July 9th at 11 a.m. Central Time. So, very, very cool. We'll do a TLDR really quickly here for everybody that just wants to see what the biggest things are. But for the TLDR, there's going to be an evade mechanic. It does not have any iframes at all, which means you cannot evade to, like, get in to not take any damage from anything. So like if there's an AoE ability, for example, and you dodge in that AoE ability, you will still be hit by it. It also gives you a 0.5% of increased cooldown recovery speed per character level. So the higher level you are, the more often you can use it. And because they're adding this evade, they now will understand that every single class has this evade. So because of that, they will make fights harder that implement these sort of evade mechanics. You'll have to evade out of things in order to dodge a boss fight or something, or dodge a boss mechanic or something like that. That way they can make fights a little bit more brutal to sort of make things a little bit more difficult and trickier. There will also be items that surround it that increase the cooldown recovery speed, as well as giving you evade charges, and even there's items that summon a crab, which is very cool. The Nemesis System will be a new random system in Last Epoch. There are 3 different choices when you come up to this mechanic. So when you click on the mechanic, what will happen is you'll be shown 3 different items, and if you banish the target, it will basically remove that boss from the pool, so you won't see that boss again in different timelines. If you challenge him, you will challenge him for the items that are said there, and if you kill him, he will drop those items. If you empower, what happens is you can either replace an item in there with a legendary or unique item that will give you LP. It will give you higher affixes for exalted items, as well as giving you more forge potential, which allows you to sort of build your items yourself. There will also be an Egg of the Forgotten, which if you do not replace the item that says replace on there, like this little image here where it says replace, right there, what'll happen is this one will it'll be dropped into a random a random unique item if dropped or empowered. Within the new system, there's going to be the Forgotten Night faction, with Harbingers being the sort of mini bosses leading up to the Pinnacle Boss. The Harbingers basically going to be one boss in every single monolith, so 10 different timelines. Each one is different, each one is unique, and when you kill them for the first time, you will be rewarded an eye. And these eyes will allow you, once you do all 10 of them, these eyes will allow you to fight the Pinnacle Boss. And each eye is a different chance for you to fight this guy. So think of the eyes as like portals in PoE, where you have a certain number of attempts on this boss. And if you don't do it within those attempts, you have to go back and kill the Harbingers again to try to re-get those chances again. With the Pinnacle Boss, it's going to be basically just like a lot of fight. It's going to first off start in the online cycle. After the online cycle, if it's been killed, the next business day it will be released, which means that if it's killed on a Thursday, it'll release on a Friday. If it's killed on a Friday, it will be released on a Monday. So make sure that you try to get this boss down for everybody. Because once a person kills this boss, it will be available for everybody. And it's only available the first week in online. Offline characters will have to wait a week. It says if Aberoth remains unslain the first week, it will automatically release to the encounter to all environments to prevent too long of a delay for offline and legacy players. Boss defenses, basically... Each boss in the game had something called dynamic damage reduction, which caused you to, if you did a boatload of damage at the start, you wouldn't do very much damage nearly at the end. So this is what kind of replaces the sort of figuring thing. And it looks like it's going to be 75%, 50%, and 25%. So every quarter of health that you get the boss down, he's going to gain, which is now going to be a ward. The longer the ward's up, the faster it decays, which is very helpful for builds that don't do as much damage as, say, like the top tier performing builds. One of the last ones is going to be Glyph of Envy, which allows you to give your monoliths a lot of stability, which basically allows you to kill the boss a lot faster for different other characters that you have. And these will only be able to be dropped in level 100 zones. Last but not least, Harbinger's Needle is going to be something that allows you to push corruption. It gives you 3 additional Gaze of Orobuses when you kill the timeline boss with this equipped in your idle slot. So any class can use this, which is going to be sweet. And then we got some new uniques coming out. Some of them are going to be very sweet, like taking 0 damage when hit, making Void Cleave no longer have an item or weapon requirement, gaining stacks of Dusk Shroud, as well as giving you more melee pen with all resistances. So, very, very cool stuff here. It sounds very exciting. I'm very, very, very looking forward to the release of this. And, let me know what you guys think. If you guys liked it, it's going on about an hour-long video. I just kind of wanted to jump through everything, make sure that everybody was informed. It will release July 9th at 11 a.m. Central Time, so be sure to have everything ready to go July 9th, which will be on a Tuesday. So a Tuesday is when it will release. Hopefully it doesn't conflict with other games, but we will soon find out the closer those games get. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This sounds like a lot of really good improvements for the game. A lot of difficulty, and a lot of, like, you have to do A before you do B, before you do C, before you do D sort of a thing. Like, you have to kill all the bosses first. You have to get to empowered monoliths, kill all those bosses, and then you can do the Pinnacle Boss. You only have 10 attempts to do the Pinnacle Boss. Once you do the Pinnacle Boss, then after that, it releases for everybody. and it's basically a new sort of a system to put some life and feeling into the game. So yeah, that's basically all I have for you guys. So hope you guys have a great day today, and we'll see you in Eterra.